Welcome again to this 1 hour of what I think are top 5 digital marketing skills that are of importance to practitioners in 2020 and beyond. Some of this will sound familiar, but I want to give you some extra thoughts about it, what I think is important to stay up to date with the skills that you need to have. Before I get started, oops, let me go back. So this is what we're going to talk about, 5 digital marketing skills. It's only about an hour, 45 minutes to an hour, give or take. So obviously, I'm not going to make you any specialist for this, but I will at least try to give you a reasonable overview as to what I think are good and important skills to have for this. A little bit about me, just as a starter. So my name is Frank, as you probably have figured. You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm quite active there. If you're not on LinkedIn, it's a good idea to get on. It's really for professionals to intermingle. There's a vast difference between being active on Facebook and being active on LinkedIn. Facebook is where you would share what you had for breakfast and what your cat's doing and where you went on holiday and stuff like this. And on Facebook, you would have conversations about stuff that is, I'd say, important for, let's say, from a personal branding or a business perspective. So you could share stories that you have from work experiences, for example, with like-minded people, or you could read from others what they are up to. I am quite active on LinkedIn in terms of getting new customers for my kind of business. I get about 70% of all my customers from LinkedIn. So it's a good platform to hang out on. If you're not there, get on it, recommendation. And if you're on it, once you're on it, then please link up with me. You can find me at the link below. You can just search for me in the search function, Dr. Frank Peter, and hopefully I'll show up there. I also have a website, as you can see here, but a bit more into detail. So I do work with Google fairly closely. I am not employed by Google. I don't get any payments or any money from them. I just get sometimes a bit of Google swag. Like I get my coffee mug and got a Google t-shirt and stuff like that. I'm certified with a couple of government bodies here in Malaysia, where I currently reside, and in Singapore, that is the Singapore Institute of Management there, and a couple of others. I'm certified with a couple of Google products. And I also work closely with academia. So I'm an associate faculty with one of the public universities here, and I'm an industry advisor for one of the private universities here in Malaysia. But I work with quite a number of others. But I don't want to talk so much about me. Gonna get a bit shy, already blush a little bit. Just a couple of things I want you to know. So I have done a couple of TED Talks. If you are interested in some other stuff as well as to what I've done, I will send you a link later to another video that I would like you to see as a reference. But you can also go to the TED channel, for example, and search for my name. Should be able to see some of the TED Talks there. Now, first things first, digital marketing skills. The skills that I believe are of importance include, well, obviously social media. Social media skills is something that is evergreen, at least for the time being. More and more effort is being done on social media, especially now during the lockdown periods, where a lot of people are being confined to home. More and more people go onto social media. So for businesses, as well as for individuals who require, let's say, personal branding, this is a great avenue to get into. So social media is, if I use a couple of quotes first, social media is about sociology and psychology more than technology. So it's not about the platform per se and the technology that these platforms provide. It's really more about the interactions that take place on social media platforms. So that is something I want you to keep in mind when it comes to using your skills, for example, that it is not about posting stuff for the heck of posting. It is really to create an engagement between you, let's say your company, your brand, your products, as well as your potential consumers that are out there, potential customers. So it is all about the human-to-human interaction that signifies social media. That is something that should always be in the back of your head. So it is not just posting for the sake of posting, just for being there. It is posting to show a human face to your company or your business or your product. So it should never be about the management posting or admin posts or the corporation or whatever. It's always about the human talks to another human. So that's where the social and social media comes in. So that's an important skill to have. So it is not lawyer speak that comes out, and we get back to this in a moment when I talk a bit more about content. It is not lawyer speak that's in there. It is actually us having a conversation on a social media platform that has been done in a more anonymous way, I give you that, but it still has the same purpose as if we were to meet, let's say, in a meeting room or on the street or in a shop. It is a continuation of an in-person conversation that people may have. So in order for social media and all the other things that I will talk about later, so that is the online advertising we will talk about, the email marketing we talk about, as certain skills that you have, as well as content marketing itself. An important part for all of these, not only for social media, but for all of these, is to be clear as to why you actually do this. Now, why do you engage in digital marketing in the first place? Why do you want to have a conversation on social media? Why do you need to advertise, be it on social media or some other, let's say, Google products? Why do you send out marketing campaigns? You have to be very, very clear about the goals that you're trying to achieve. And I do have another video. I recently gave a webinar on behalf of a local university here, not the ones I mentioned earlier, another university. And I will send you a link for that particular one. So that was all about social media. So you get a bit more of a background for it. Here I just abbreviated a little bit. So in terms of your goal, you have to be clear as to what you want to achieve. That could be, for example, getting sales. On social media itself, getting sales is quite difficult unless you have a product that is unique and normally of lower cost. Then you may have a chance of getting a sale on social media. Sale means that you post something and somebody sends you a private message saying, oh, I like it, send me your account number or your bank account number. I bank in the money right away. That would be a sale. It's quite rare to happen on social media. What you can get is secondary sales, meaning you get people from social media onto your website, for example, or into your store. I have a client, a local sporting retailer. They don't have a website where they sell their stuff. They only have retail outlets. So they use social media to drive foot traffic into their stores. So that is something that social media will work for. You can also draw them obviously to an e-commerce website or e-commerce store that you have. Another thing that social media is particularly good for is lead generation. And I mentioned that now for my business, I get about 70% of all my traffic or my business out of LinkedIn. So that is lead generation. On LinkedIn, nobody on LinkedIn messages me and says, well, I like this, give me your bank account number. It's not going to happen. But I get them to, for example, my website where they fill out a form and then can sign up for a certain course if they like to. For personal branding, could be that your goal might be to get a job. I recently, as I mentioned, I gave a talk to university. That's where the slide comes from. So university students were in the audience, and for them, it's important at some point to get a job. So that could be one goal. But you have to be quite clear as to what you're trying to achieve. And the reason for that is you have to create content later on that will fulfill the purpose of you being on a particular social media platform. If you just post content that comes to mind without having any purpose, you're not building up a particular brand. You're not building up, let's say, some authenticity. So let me go back before I go further. So you want, in the end of the day, get something out of your postings. And out of the postings, what you don't want to get is shallow stuff, like likes, shares, comments, because those don't put food on the table. Yeah, so if you use social media marketing as as a platform for your digital marketing initiatives, part of your skills that you need to develop is to create content specifically for social media that will drive business goals. So just posting anyhow what comes to mind, cat videos, breakfast, holiday snaps, and whatever, they don't get you into getting more sales, for example, or getting more leads. So once you have identified this, then you see that the outcome that you have is not a vanity outcome. So that would be number of fans, number of likes. Those are nice to have, but they don't bring food on the table. Sales are the ones that actually make a business go round. So in the end of the day, the goals that you identify for your social media marketing, but also for your online advertising, email marketing, and so on, are based on revenue goals in general. So that is important consideration to have. So once you have your goal identified, then you can work around, especially on social media, by creating content that helps you to build an authority. And the question always is, now, why should a customer come to you and do business with you and not to somebody else? Why should I come to you and not to Frank? So that question, why should they come to you and not to me? Or why should they come to me and not to you? Why should they come to me if they don't know me? Why would they do business with somebody they don't have any trust in? The idea of especially social media and the skills that are involved in this is for you to build up an authority so people, first of all, know you and trust you. So you build up a credibility by providing valuable content to them, and I'll come back to this in a moment, by creating valuable content, but also by creating something that they can trust and rely on later on. So when it comes to content creation, have a content strategy, we will talk about this later, that will help you to build not only your online presence, but a trusted presence and an authority status. So when you at some point then ask now for people to open up their wallets, to do business with you, to buy something from you, then if they trust you, then there's a higher likelihood that this will take place. Another thing that is important, a second part of that strategy, and that is also important not only for social media, but for all the other initiatives, the other skills that you have to have, is you have to be able to find your marketing persona. The marketing persona in its simplest form is your most valuable customer. I talk a bit more details and I give some examples of this in the video that I'm going to send you a link to, the webinar I gave to the university recently. So I give a lot more examples for this, and I encourage you to take a look at this. Once you have identified your most valuable persona or customer segment, then you can again create content that speaks to that specific customer profile. So you can create content that is not for every Tom, Dick, and Harry and their cat. It is content that is specific only for a particular customer segment. I'm going to refer back to this in a moment when it comes to personalization of content. So once you have identified your perfect customer and you have identified your goal, what you were trying to achieve, then you can start building rapport with that particular customer and eventually ask that particular customer to do business with you. That is a skill. That skill is based on, first of all, having that particular strategy. That's number one. And secondly, on building content or creating content that is both specific for the goal that you have as well as for the customer profile. And I have down there, don't bother about anybody else. Now, once you have identified who is your profitable customer segment and you get feedback from other people who will never ever buy from you that your content is not good for them, then who cares? Because if they never buy from you, if they're not in your customer segment anyways, then there is no point trying to please them as well. So I'm quite strict with this, and you'll see this in that video. I think I keep on referencing that I really don't bother about anybody else who is not willing, able, or in that category of giving me any money, so any business benefit. I only focus on people who actually can help me to put food on the table or money into the business so I can help. So that would help to pay my staff, for example. So that's those two focus areas you have to have. That's focusing on the goal and focusing on the persona. Once you have that, then you can create content and you can, do your advertising strategies as well. Now, when it comes to both social media, but also all the other parts that we're going to talk about, content creation in particular, nobody really cares about you or your company. People only care about one thing, and that is themselves. So when you come up with content creation, be it for social media, be it for advertising, be it for email marketing, and so on, the stuff that you put out has to help your customer. If you put out stuff saying that, no, my product is the best, or I am the best, or my company is the best, you should buy, nobody cares really about this. What people do care is they have a problem for which they need a solution. So they want to buy something that they currently need. They have a question they need answered, or whatever it might be. So they look at their need. So you as a business then have to fulfill that need if it fits within your niche. So you're not in the business of selling a product by right. You're in the business of helping people fulfilling certain needs that they have. So you're a solutions provider. You probably have come across this quite a bit. So you provide solutions for people's problems that they may have. Once you get your head around that, then it's a lot easier to service customers. That comes down to a mission statement as well. So if your mission statement is something like, now we want to be the best company on the globe, doing this and this and that, then nobody really bothers. But if your mission statement is something like, now we want to help a certain segment of our customers to become better at this and this and that, then the mindset that the company has is customer-centric and not product or business-centric. And to me, that's an important consideration when it comes to better customer service. Okay, the second skill that I think you need to have nowadays goes into the area of paid advertising. Now, paid advertising can be on social media, but can also be, for example, on, let's say, Google or Google, on Google accounts. Now, one thing is for personalization, for all the content that comes out, it has to be personalized content. General, one size fits all messages, both on social media, but even more so on advertising, don't work at all. I mean, look at yourself, man. You will not enjoy being marketed to in general. If I were to ask you now, what would be your preference? Let's say you have an issue, a need for something, whatever, how to buy the tie, how to buy cheap cat food, whatever it might be. If you have any issue like that or any requirement, and you go to Google and you Google for it, would you prefer to click on an advertisement or would you prefer to click on an organic link that is below the advertisements on Google? And I know from experience, because on every in the past direct person-to-person training, I asked this question, and 99 to 100% of the room prefers to click on an organic search result and not on a paid ad. And the reason is quite simple. People think, no, paid ad, the company paid for it, so it might not be true. It is like I go out and say, I'm the best trainer for this. Nobody would believe it because I advertised myself. So it's not that believable. Same is true for TV advertisements, for advertisements in newspapers. So it's whenever it looks like an advertisement, people don't like to get marketed to as a general rule of thumb, and they will ignore it. So you have to be particularly good at this. Advertisements still do work. Otherwise, people wouldn't do it anymore. Companies wouldn't do it. They still do work. But they don't work as great as they could unless the company puts an extra effort into it to provide personalized content. And that links back to the persona that I mentioned earlier. Now, once you have identified your persona, so your perfect customer profile, then you can create content for advertising purposes that speaks particularly to the need of that particular persona. So instead of, again, offering a particular product that you have, now buy this, buy now, cheap, you offer a solution for a problem that a person has. So let's say for Google advertising, let's say I require something. My camera broke, or my webcam, let's say, broke. Something happened, and I need a new one. So I go into Google and try and buy one. So if there's a company, let's say you have an e-commerce shop selling webcams, and you provide for the need that I currently have, then I might come to your store and buy one. So that could be, once I know about you and once I know that you can help me in my current dilemma, then I may click on your ad. If you just push a camera towards me, then I may not. So it's got to be specific for an audience. So that is another skill you have to have for personalization. So you have to be clear about who to market to. It is more work for an advertising campaign because you may have multiple personas. I do a lot of, as an example, I do a lot of training for hotels, for example. Hotels have, let's say, business travelers, they have honeymooners, for example, and they have family holiday makers. So those are three different, totally different customer segments. And the message just goes out to, let's say, a business traveler is very different from the message that has to go out to honeymooners or family travelers. So you have to be clear as to who you try to attract, that is the persona, and then come up with content, advertising content in this case, that is specific for that particular audience. If the hotel would just blast out, now we have cheap rooms, then nobody really bothers too much about this. Then, so that is part of being audience specific. Another part of being audience specific is what's called a micro moment. So a person goes to Google because they have something that they require at this moment. That is different from Facebook. Now, if you advertise on Facebook, then your ad is noise in the background because people are looking, busy looking at cat videos and all the other stuff, but they may not be interested in what you have to offer at that particular moment. So they are not ready in this case, so that they are not in your customer life cycle. On the other hand, people who are on Google, for example, and search for something specific, they have a need for this right at this moment. Same on YouTube. They may have a need to learn something. They may have a need to purchase something. They may have something else that they require at this particular moment. So that is part of your personalization as well. So the ad content that you have has to answer that particular micro moment. Again, it's a lot more work to set up a personalized ad campaign, but that is a skill that needs to be developed for you or for your colleagues in marketing in order to capture the audience at that moment, because that's when they are most receptive. If they have a requirement for something at this moment and you hit them with something very, very generic, then they will not react to it. If you can provide a solution for their current problem, then you have a higher chance of getting that click on your ad. So you try to solve needs. And I mentioned focus on the click. One thing that some advertisers forget is all the ad ever wants is the click, nothing else. So you're not trying to sell anything with the ad. You only want the click. You want people to click on your ad, come to your website, for example, or whatever, your social media profile, your Instagram profile, whatever it might be, whatever your the purpose is of your advertising campaign, whatever your goal is. So it's only the click that the ad is trying to achieve. So your ad has to be good enough that it stands out amongst all the other ads that are there, in terms of having content that entices people to click on the ad. Now, you cannot just put any content on there. Obviously, it has to be content that solves a need of a person who is currently looking for something. But of course, the landing page or your website has to fulfill that promise as well. So if I go into Google and let's say I want to buy a webcam and I click on your ad, and your ad sends me somewhere to a home page or something that is non-related to a webcam, I'd be utterly disappointed. I probably click the back button. It costs you money for the click, and it costs you bad quality score. That's something that Google has, that Google measures. in terms of customer satisfaction. So if you show me an ad that fulfills my need, my current need for getting a webcam, and it ends up being on a webcam page, then I'm going to be happy, most likely buy this. Yeah, so your landing page has to fulfill what the ad promises. That is part of the personalization process that comes with it. Now, another thing for personalization that is often overlooked is what's called retargeting. Again, a skill that you have to develop. Retargeting is slightly different from getting new customers. So it's not customer acquisition, like what we had in the previous slide. It is to get people back to a page that they have already seen in your website. A good example for this is, now let's say if you have been to Amazon, let's say, and you go to Amazon, you look at a particular webcam, or you might have, wherever you are, you might have local e-commerce stores that also follow the same. So, but for Amazon, for example, if you don't buy that webcam at that moment, then the picture of that camera will follow you wherever you go. So it's going to be on blogs that you visit, it's going to be on social media that you visit. That camera follows you around, and that is called retargeting. That is highly personalized marketing. It takes a bit of skill to not do this in a way that it becomes annoying. But it is something that is very, very productive. Otherwise, Amazon wouldn't do it if it wouldn't work. We do the same for some of our courses that we have, just to draw people back in. So it is something that you might be interested in. It improves customer experience. So you draw people back from where they're from. So let's say hypothetically, let's say you're interested in one of my products, let's say a webcam, but you're not ready yet. So you're still doing your research. So you come to my site, you take a look at it, but you're not quite clear yet. So you go someplace else and do maybe compare some prices for it. So then after a while, you come back or you forget about me. So I will have lost your business, unfortunately, then in that case. But with retargeting, I can make my ads follow you around. If it's done in a tasteful manner, then it constantly, but tastefully, reminds you that I still exist as a camera seller. And you may then come back and buy it from me. Now, you may recall this now. Before the lockdowns, there were many advertisements from hotels, from TripAdvisor, flights, airline companies, and so on. And they all had this. So when you looked at a hotel room somewhere, that hotel room will follow you wherever you go. If you looked at a flight, that flight would follow you wherever you go. If you looked at some, as I said, from Amazon, any product, that product follows you around. Just to remind you that they are still there, so you don't go to a competitor and buy. And if they do this, obviously it must work. So that is a skill, again, that I would like you to also consider picking up as part of your advertising skills, because it works. Another skill that is of great importance is email marketing. Now, many people say email marketing is dead. It's no longer working because people just not click it away as spam. And that is not entirely true. Email marketing still has its place, but the focus has to be on value. And I'll give you an example for this. We run an e-commerce website selling golf stuff out of Malaysia. We only serve Malaysia as a region. So we only ship within Malaysia. Now we had a newsletter that came out from our golf website, and that newsletter had valuable info in it. So if you're a golfer, you will notice now how to prevent a slice, how you hit a particular golf club, how to hit a hybrid, how to hit out of the rough. There were golf tips and golf lessons. So 90% or maybe even 95% of that email was valuable stuff, lessons, tips, and so on. And only the bottom 5%, really literally the bottom 5% of the email was about, by the way, we also have this new product in. So it was not in-your-face marketing. It provided value. And when we changed the frequency from every 2 weeks to once a month, we got angry emails. Now, people asking, where's my newsletter? How come it's so rare now? I like those tips. So we got feedback that people are actually waiting for the newsletter to come. So it's not that they put it into spam. It is that they were actually waiting for it. So that is the value part. Again, what I mentioned earlier with the personas, it still holds true here. So you define your personas. I mentioned the hotel as an example. So hotel, business traveler, honeymooners, or family holiday makers. If you send out email campaigns and you group information for all of these three together, it's going to be very difficult to entice all of them to do business with you. So that's where segmentation comes in. So you have to define who this email needs to go out to. So you have to, if you want to attract business travelers, you have to have an email list specifically for business travelers, for a hotel. Or let's say you have different kinds of products, different kinds of services that you sell or promote. Then having segmentation of your list is an important thing. Only then you can provide as personalized messages in your emails as you can. So that's when you write your content. That content that you create, be it video content in emails, works quite well. Be it infographics, images, be it text, whatever it might be, or combination, all of those, has to be, again, for those two strategies that I mentioned earlier, it has to fulfill a particular goal. It has to, increase your leads. That's a goal. So you write something to increase your leads. You write something to increase your e-commerce conversions, or whatever it might be, whatever your goals are. And it has to speak to your personas that you have identified. So it has to work for your perfect customer profile, your personas, and so on. Both of these have to be fulfilled. That is the content that you have to put in. Once you have your content created in email, another important step that is often overlooked is you have to test your email for spam words. Depends on the email client that you use. Now, for example, we use MailChimp. I have no affiliation with MailChimp other than being a user. MailChimp has a built-in spam score. So that means you create your email, you send it through that spam score. Now, when you write an email, certain words have their own individual spam value. So if you have in your email itself, in the email body, if you have words like discount, free, cheap, click here, stuff like that, they all have a little value, little spam value to them. Now what the spam score does, it adds up all the individual spam values. So whatever, half a point for this word, quarter of a point for that word, and so on and so on. Once it adds up to something like 5 in total, then Gmail, for example, will automatically put your email into the spam folder, or Yahoo. So it's important to figure out now if you have any words in there that will trigger the spam protection in, for example, Gmail. You don't want that to happen. So send there are free versions available. As I said, we use MailChimp that has it built in. Before you send out your email, send it through one of those spam checkers, just to make sure that you don't have words in them that build up a score that eventually sends you a perfectly email, your best email in the world that you have written into a spam folder. That's number one of the test. And number two of a test is create your own, if you don't already have, create your own Gmail account, Yahoo account, a Hotmail account, stuff that is still fairly popular, and maybe some business account as well that you have. And send your email to yourself first in all these accounts. Just make sure they look okay. Now, different email clients rip up your email in a different way, especially if you have images in there, or you have links in there, or you have videos in there. They may look ugly. So make sure it looks good in different email clients. That is also part of this. While you're there, make sure all the links work. So you click on all the links just to ensure that they actually end up where you want them to end up and not someplace else. So once you have done that, then you can send out your email. Now, a question I get asked very often is, when is the best day of the week? That's what DOW stands for, day of the week, or time of the day to send out an email. And my standard answer is, it depends. There's no hard and fast rule for this. You have to try this out. excuse me, a good friend of mine has a totally different customer profile than what I have, totally different personas. So it's a good friend of mine. He runs a website called Tudum Sichumel. And he sells headscarves for kids, and his personas are young mothers. For young mothers, they spend a lot of time on Facebook, but only after the school run. So a good time for him is weekdays between 10 and 12 in the morning. That is the perfect time for him to send out emails, for example, because that's when these mothers have sent their kids to school. They're back home, they make themselves a cup of tea or whatever, and they're online. Now, for my courses, for example, I do a lot of work with HR departments. They only work Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. So we have found out that best time for us to send our emails is Monday morning at 9. So it depends on your persona. Best way of doing this is to try it out. If you have an email list of, let's say, 1,000 people, or 500 people, or whatever it might be, split it up half-half. So yeah, 500 in one group, 500 in a different group. Group A, you send out whatever Monday morning. Group B, you send out whatever Tuesday afternoon, and then you check. If you have a larger group, split it up into 4 if you can, as long as it makes some sense. So you get an idea as to now how people interact with your email. So things that you can check, depending on different days of week or different times of the day, just to find out, is the fourth part here. You got to measure. That's an important part as well. It's not just email marketing. It's not send out an email and hoping for the best. It's actually to figure out what did work and what didn't. Open rates is something that obviously has to come, but it's not good enough. Now, opening rate means that somebody clicked on the subject headline and opened up your email and hopefully took a look at it. But that's not really good enough, because the email also has to fulfill a goal. The email also has to give you some revenue. So people need to click on a link, come to your website, and do something that is of business benefit. Buy something, fill out a lead generation form, fill out a mailing list form, whatever makes business sense to you. That's called conversions. So open rates is good to know, but it's not the ultimate goal that you have. Clicks are also good, but in the end of the day, you're running a business. So you want to get something in return for the effort that you put in. So once you have all this, once you know what time of the day is good, what day of the week is good, once you know what subjects lines work, so you can mess around with those as well, then you can constantly learn and improve. Just as a general rule of thumb, if you use MailChimp will give you a benchmark depending on your industry. But as a general rule of thumb, your open rate should be about 30%, 30 to 35%. So 1/3 of your emails should be opened. And in terms of clicks, you should get at least a 10% click-through ratio out of this. And conversions really depends on how well your website is structured. So the higher, the better, obviously. But as a general benchmark, 1/3 of your emails should be opened. 2/3 of your emails, people will not open. Okay, next one is content creation. Mentioned it a couple of times. Content creation that's a major skill. That's basically what holds a lot of the stuff together. Content itself is not good enough. You got to create content that wins, and that is optimized content. And again, optimized content is specific for your personas and for your goals. So if you're trying to attract a particular customer segment with a particular current need, then you have to provide valuable content for that particular sub-segment. Nobody else really counts. So let's say you're selling whatever ladies' shoes of a particular style, whatever, high heels, and you come out with content that will speak to people, to ladies who buy high heels. If I don't like your content, it doesn't matter, because I will never buy any high heels from you. I can guarantee you that. So you don't have to focus to also please me with your content, because I'm not important in this regard. You only focus on people who will eventually become a customer of yours. That is an important part when you create content. You got to provide value to your content. Putting up something that's now, my product is the best, you should come and buy now, that is not value to your prospect or your persona. How you can help that particular persona, let's say, look good in high heels, I'm not sure, but how it would help, that is something that would provide value. If I advertise for my courses, for example, I try to show people that getting my course, getting through my course provides them value, because they get more knowledge, they get better in their jobs, and hopefully they will get a raise at some point or have better job prospects to start out with. Another thing, not only for social media, but also for other things, be authentic. Now, don't promise something that makes no sense. Now, you probably saw this during the lockdowns, at least in Malaysia. There were so many people who peddled their rich quick schemes. Do this, do that, make millions overnight in your pajamas, and so on. These things all surfaced, but obviously it is not authentic. Nobody believes this stuff anymore. So don't promise stuff that you can't fulfill. Try to help people honestly with your products and services. That's probably the best way of now summing up how to create good content. So whenever I create a piece of content that goes out, let's say on social media as an example, I ask myself those two questions. Will this content that I create, will it help me to reach my goal? And I give you an example of this. I have this in the other video I mentioned earlier a couple of times. I sent you a link for this. I'm in the business of doing corporate training. Yeah, so my goal being on social media is I need to get more corporate training gigs. So I want, in order for me to put food on the table, I need to get engaged by companies who I then can provide training to. So that is my goal I want to achieve. So that is very clearly defined. The second strategy here that the persona identifies is now, who will help me? Who is able to help me to reach my goal? And those would be, let's say, HR people or learning and development managers within HR. Those are the ones I need to be in touch with, because those are the ones that will eventually hire me. If other people, like my fellow trainers, don't like my stuff, then I don't really care, because they're not going to hire me. Yeah. So I need to provide valuable content to people, in this case, L&D managers or HR managers, for example, who will help me to fulfill my goal, to reach my goal. That is to get more training gigs. So before I post any piece of content that I have made, be it video, be it text, whatever, I ask myself those questions. But if I post this, will this piece of content help me to reach my goal? If yes, then I ask myself the second question. Will this piece of content be of value to my persona? L&D managers, for example. And if I tick both boxes, I will post it. Give you an example. So let's say I found the secret baker in me over the lockdown period. So I've baked a couple of things. So should I share the stuff that I have baked? Piece of bread, for example, a loaf of bread. Should I share this on LinkedIn or on social media? So will sharing me, let's say my bread recipe or a picture of my bread, will that help me to reach my goal of getting more corporate training gigs? Probably not. Will it impress any of the L&D managers that I've made my own bread? Probably not either. So then I don't post it. I may post it on Facebook though, because as I mentioned earlier, most of my business comes from LinkedIn. Facebook has a bit more personal stuff on it. So I guess Facebook, it might be okay. LinkedIn, definitely not. So I want you to also consider this. Now, before you post stuff for business purposes, to ask yourself those two questions. Now, will it help my goal? Will it help me to impress my persona? A good way of getting your content across is through storytelling. That is by building an authentic emotional connection between you and your marketing persona. So not just going out telling people, this is the best, you should buy it, but getting into a conversation, putting stuff into a context. So you're not selling, let's say as a hotel, you're not selling a room, you're selling an experience that comes with the room. That experience could include whatever, a comfortable bed, nice breakfast, all of this. And that can be woven into something that is slightly bigger than just buy my room. So you can tell a story. That story can include a review of a hotel guest, for example, who has done this before. So think about how you can package your product or the service that you have into something that makes it more believable for people, but also more relatable. Yeah, don't sell a product, sell an experience, sell a solution for a need, and package it in something that is a bit more intensive in terms of word count or in terms of video, for example. So it embeds it. By doing so, then you create that emotional connection. Yeah, so storytelling is another skill that I think is an important skill to have. Okay, last but not least, as the fifth one, is your web analytics. And that includes, you got to find out what people do on your website. That mainly is for, let's say, Google Analytics. Let's see how we get in there. So the important part of using data is in the decision-making process. So for example, let's say I have posted stuff on Facebook, just for the sake of it. Or you have posted stuff on Facebook for your brand. And you have posted, one day you post, let's say, a video about a particular product that you have. On the next day, you post, let's say, an image of that product and a bit of text. On the third day, you post just a long piece of text, a long form content of text that explains what you have. How do you know which one of these content pieces did work for a particular purpose, let's say sell more of that product, and which ones did not? If you just post and pray, then you probably waste a lot of your effort, a lot of companies' money, a lot of your time on something that was completely useless. So you need to be able to figure out which part of content works and which part of content does not work. And the only way to do this is to measure. So from Facebook, for example, you want people to click through. So it could be that, let's say you have a video on Facebook that explains a certain product. And below the video, you have a link. To find out more about the product, click this link. People click this link, come to your website, and hopefully buy it. On the other hand, if you have an image, maybe a lot more people click on that link, but nobody buys. So then at least you know, it is not the number of people that count in the end based on that image. It's the number of people who actually buy the product on your website that counts. So in that case, you know that, let's say, a video post is better than an image post or a text-based post. So the only way to figure this out is by measuring. And the best way of measuring this is through Google Analytics. It's a free tool it's obviously comes from Google, otherwise it wouldn't be called Google Analytics. It's free to set up into a website. There is a paid version for it, but there's really no point buying it. So the free version is perfectly fine. And that helps you to figure out now which marketing channel works. So let's say you're not only posting on Facebook, you're also posting on Instagram, you're posting on LinkedIn, you send out email marketing, you spend money on, let's say, on advertising, both on social media, but also, let's say, on Google. If you don't measure your return on your investment, then you're just throwing money away. Yeah. So it helps you to figure out which marketing channels are the best in order for you to have maximum conversions of it. It evaluates your content. So let's say you do storytelling, as I would encourage you to do. So let's say you have a blog section on your website. It's again something that I do recommend to have, but that's a totally different subject. So you tell stories in a blog on your own website. And if you're wondering now, what does he talk about blog? A blog section is so popular that out of the Fortune 500 companies that are listed on the stock exchange in the United States, all of them have a blog. They're not always called blogs. Sometimes they're called knowledge base or something else. But it is basically a blog section. A blog is a continuation of social media. So you post something on your blog in a more human tone. So it's not lawyer speak. It is human-to-human conversation that you can have. And people can respond to it. Blogs allow for comments below. or questions. So let's say you write different blog posts to get people to trust you more, to build authority, to build credibility, and so on. If you don't know what people read or consume, then again, you're wasting a lot of your effort. So let's say you write the best 2,000-word article you have ever written. You think it's the best piece of content on the whole internet. But then if you look at the data, you see that people only read for 10 seconds. They only come to that page and read 10 seconds and then they leave that page. That means that your impression of having the best content in the world and the impression that people have is not the same. So then you have to maybe rewrite it, make it simpler, whatever it might be. But you can optimize it. If you don't measure, you still live in that dream that you wrote the best piece of content, but nobody else agrees with that. It also helps you, once you collect data, to evaluate your personas. Because you can see now, if you create your personas to see now who you should market to, if you see those are the same who eventually buy your stuff or sign up your lead generation forms or whatever it might be, if those are the same, then you have made a good decision. But it could be that now the personas who actually buy or convert on your site are slightly different from those that you have initially predicted. Then you can make your adjustments. So then you can create content that is even more specific to that customer profile that has proven to be profitable to you. Yeah, without having data, you will not be able to make those decisions. So Google Analytics in particular is an important skill to have as well. So then you can make data-driven decisions rather than just decisions on gut feeling alone. I think that brings me to the end. So in case you think this was somewhat useful, we have obviously something else. So this was just about an hour where I gave you a bit of a flavor to it. We have coming up on the 16th and 17th of June, a 2-day digital marketing masterclass that will cover all of this. I have the content in a second. That is delivered live through Zoom. So that is live. You can ask questions at that time if you wanted to. So it's fully interactive. It's very hands-on. Normally the class sizes are quite small. We try to keep it below 20 people in general. Now, normally we sell this for $899. It is currently on Eventbrite for $899. For the next 48 hours, after this ends, I'm gonna lower the price to $699 only. So that is a huge reduction. It depends on where you're from in this part of the world. If you're from Malaysia, that's 699 ringgit. If you're someplace else, that's only 164. That is for 2 days. It's a 2-day class, and so it's limited to 10 tickets only. Yeah. So only 10 tickets. Once those tickets are sold for 164 US dollars, then we go back to the original price of 210. And for you to see what you can get, as I said, it's a 2-day course. We have a morning session, we have a lunch break, and then an afternoon session. Now, for the morning session on the day 1, that is on the 16th, we will talk about developing an overall digital marketing strategy. That's before we get actually started with anything. I mentioned part of a strategy earlier with creating a goal and creating the personas for you to market to. That is only part of it. The strategy is actually a lot bigger that goes into this. It will take about half a day to talk about all the homework that needs to be done before you write the very first post. Then in the afternoon, we will talk about Google Analytics. So that is a hands-on session where you get your hands dirty. I walk you through the interface so you know how to measure. Measuring part is an important part for me because if you don't measure, you have a hard time figuring out what works and what doesn't. That's why I put this on day 1 before we talk about, let's say, social media, advertising, and other content parts. On the second day, I saw there are a couple of chat messages. I get to your chat in a second. On the second day, we talk about social media. That is about, again, part of the strategy for it, as well as what social actually means. The platforms themselves, how to choose a platform, what's the best time to post and stuff like that. So it's more about the platforms and a bit of strategy in there as well. In the afternoon, we will talk about Google Ads. formerly called Google AdWords, now called Google Ads. Again, that's a hands-on session. We will use one of my interfaces. If you have your own Google Ads account, you can follow me around on this. If you have, if you don't have one, then we have a demo account. Same for Google Analytics. Now it's again a hands-on session. We have a demo account provided by Google. And we talk a bit about email campaigns as well. So it's a full-fledged thing. It's very hands-on, small classes, highly interactive. What I do suggest is have a second screen available. That's sort of a pro tip as well. If you work from home or anywhere actually from your laptop, get a second screen, a second monitor, something that you can plug in. I have here two. So whenever I look here to one side, I look at my screen for the laptop. If I look at you, that camera at the moment stands on my second screen. So when I look down, I can see what's on that screen. So the productivity is, you double your productivity. If once you have two screens, you will not believe how you could get actual work done with only one screen. It is that important. So if you get nothing out of this, get a second screen. I really can highly recommend it. Okay, I'm going to post the slides later on. So that is, if you want those, I have not put them up yet, but they will be there. So if you want to take a note of this, if you like, so skills.com.my, DM for digitalmarketing.pdf. All right, and I'm going to take any questions. I'm going to stop the slide share and then get into your chat. If you have any questions now that you don't want to put up here, feel free to reach out to LinkedIn or via LinkedIn, for example, or through my website.